Welcome. We're glad you could join us for this panel session discussing how founders and entrepreneurs can become involved in projects that tackle community driven challenges. How do you become aware of them? Who can you get to add to your network to gain visibilities? How can you get funding? Our panelists are going to describe programs that they're involved with and share their insights with you. And I'm going to mention a couple of federal level programs that can be sources of ideas, funding, and information on others that are involved in similar types of projects. I'm Kim Mayer. I'm Associate Vice President for Research, Interim Executive Director of the Center for Entrepreneurship and Economic Innovation, and Interim Campus Director of our Blackstone Launchpad here at the University of Texas at Arlington. I have the great joy of moderating today's panel session, and I have two terrific panelists that are joining us. So let me begin our discussion by asking each of them to briefly introduce themselves. Alicia and Alan, can you please tell me, in addition to your organization and your role, maybe tell us something fun about yourself, what book you're reading now, if you've been binge watching something on TV.
Sure. Thank you so much, Kim, for having me. I'm Alicia Collins-Butler, the Director of Education, Workforce, and Community Development with the Greater Arlington Chamber of Commerce. And so I've been in my role for about 5 years now doing education and workforce development. And something fun about me, I just finished binge watching You on Netflix, the newest season of You. Definitely winning the Netflix game through the pandemic here.
I'm Alan Klein. I'm the director at the Institute of Urban Studies, and we are housed at CAPA, the College of Architecture, Planning, and Public Affairs here at UT Arlington. And maybe something interesting about me, I'm in the middle of reading a book by Eric Larson, who a lot of people might know from Isaac Storm, history of the Galveston hurricane. And this one's called The Splendid and the Vile, and it's about Winston Churchill, particularly during the World War II years. And it's really interesting because it shows very much multiple sides of someone who's probably considered one of the greatest leaders of the 20th century, who did some amazing things and helped save Britain and democracy, et cetera, but was, shall we say, burdened with some interesting ideas arising from his Victorian / Edwardian upbringing. So it's history. Eric Larson's very accessible, but it's going a little slow, but it's good.
That's fascinating. I'm going to have to tell my husband about that one. He likes to learn more about some of these historical figures, and it's always nice to learn more about the environment that they grew up in and the culture that they were surrounded with and how that influences the decisions that they made. It's fascinating to learn that. I'll have to tell him about that. Thanks for sharing, both of you. I'm glad that you're both able to join us today. And we're going to get into our discussion in just a moment, but I do want to take a minute to thank Dell Technologies for being the title sponsor for Global Entrepreneurship Week Fort Worth this year. And then we're going to jump right into our discussion. And I think I'd like to start with Alicia and ask you to tell us about the What's Your Big Idea Entrepreneurship contest that the Greater Arlington Chamber of Commerce helps coordinate.
Yes, Kim, we're so excited to talk about this program. This is the first time that we've talked about it on this kind of a platform. So thank you again. Our What's Your Big Idea contest is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I've had the pleasure of working on it for quite a few years now, and it just seems to be getting bigger and better every year that we do it. This contest was really developed by kids for kids. To kind of spark that entrepreneurship spirit. It developed from a group of high school kids that were taking an entrepreneurship class to make entrepreneurship relevant to the younger students. So it's really exciting to see how it's evolved over the years. We're going into our 16th year for the 3rd through 8th grade contest. And so we're very, very excited about that. It started out with a small group of students all the way up to pre-pandemic. We had just over about 5,000 kids enter the contest, which is pretty phenomenal. We did see a little bit of a dip in COVID, but we know that those numbers are coming back fast and heavy this year, and we're super excited to see what the ideas are going to be this year. We did begin we expanded to high school. We're going into our third year of a high school program. So creating that continuum. Once we got through 8th grade, a group of our subcommittee team went and was like, well, why are we stopping at 8th grade? Why don't we have a continuum? What happens to them? What is facilitating that entrepreneurship spirit once they hit high school? So, okay, that's a really good question. And so we developed the contest and we moved forward with creating a high school option. In that option, we did tweak the contest differently. So for our 3rd through 8th grade students, they have the opportunity to create a product or a business that can be run or sold in the state of Texas, Arlington. It goes up by grade level. So there's just different opportunities, making it a little bit more difficult as the age group increases. And so it's very individual activity for those students in the 3rd through 8th grade. They can enter through writing an essay, or they can do an art advertisement describing their business or their product. And so when we looked at creating the high school program, we really wanted to do something different. We know that there's a lot of elements to entrepreneurship. And so one thing that we did differently is we allowed our high school students to collaborate with one another. Collaboration is a huge piece of entrepreneurship and getting to work with one another. So that's something that we really wanted to make sure that was a key element. So our high school program, we ask students to get together in groups of 3 to 5 to solve a real world challenge. So the real world challenges, where do those come from, you might ask? So those, we actually partner with the city of Arlington to identify issues that Arlington is currently facing. And then we give the students the tools and brainstorming opportunities to figure out how do they put solutions together for that challenge. In the years past, we've had anywhere from 2 to 3 challenges. I'm excited to tell you that we have 3 challenges this year. I won't tell you what they are because they haven't gone live yet. But they will be rolling out very, very soon for our students, and we're super excited to see what entries come in this year through the high school program. I think there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of student growth that comes with this, and it's just fun. It's an activity that they participate in class. I think that's why we're also very successful, is because it's built into the student curriculum. So there's curriculum ties for virtually every classroom setting. So that's why I think we see the numbers that we do.
It's incredible. And I was involved with the planning committee last year. I'm involved again this year with the program. And last year I also got to be a judge for some of I think it was the 3rd grade essays. And it was so inspiring to read what these kids were putting forward as solutions to some of these problems. But I learned something fascinating just as you were describing that. I didn't realize that essentially the entire program began as a solution to a community-driven challenge that the students had identified themselves, that they had looked around and said, we need more entrepreneurship activity in our school system. We need to get, our peers involved in this process. How do we do it? And thus began the What's Your Big Idea entrepreneurship contest. I think that's incredible. And I didn't know that until today. So thank you for sharing that. I can't wait to see how it continues to grow. And we're going to circle back after we speak with Alan for just a few minutes and talk about some successes from the program. So start to think about those, about some of the things that you think have been most impactful from having the program over the last several years.
Absolutely. The Institute was founded in 1967, so it's been around for over 50 years. And it was created to really do 3 things: to conduct applied research, to provide service learning and outreach, and to provide training for new generations of civic municipal leaders. And that has continued across those 50 years, although the structure and the way the Institute is operated has changed and over time. What we do is everything from feasibility studies for small business to complete comprehensive plans for cities to economic development plans for economic development corporations or communities to individual site studies. We also have sort of a branch, as it were, the Arlington Urban Design Center that's at City Hall in Arlington that provides services for small business owners who might be looking to redesign or spruce up their locations. And that is provided generally free through the Design Center. We have students from Kappa who are in architecture or maybe urban design or landscape architecture who, with the assistance of folks there at the city, provide conceptual plans and graphics, et cetera, for folks who come in with their own individual sort of design issues that they need to have solved. And we, like I said, we work primarily with municipal organizations. We also work with nonprofit corporations and neighborhood groups. So, and through the Design Center with individual businesses. So we cover a pretty broad range of clientele. And that's been, I think, one of the really interesting things that we can, again, all of our work is done with our students under either staff or faculty supervision. So we get some interesting ideas, and they're really, it's an opportunity for students within the Institute and Kappa to apply what they've learned in classrooms and apply their own skill and imagination to real world issues. So it really does help, provide more a well-rounded student experience at UT Arlington, but it also provides that service for community members and for folks looking to, make their location, their neighborhood, their community a better place.
Thanks, Ellen. And I think you hit on something so important. That experiential learning is such a key part of what the students are getting here at UTA. They're starting to build their portfolios, but they're also really starting to feel like they're part of our community here in Arlington. They're getting connected to these challenges that need to be solved and recognizing how important these skills that they're learning here at our university are going to be in their careers going forward. And I'm sure it's given some of them ideas over the years for companies they might start, nonprofit organizations they might get involved with, other types of solutions that they can come up with even while they're students here. So thanks for describing how the students get involved in these types of projects. I'm curious, you mentioned that you've got a couple of resources that are available to small businesses. Do you ever get small businesses and entrepreneurs involved directly in any of these projects that the Institute is working on? And if so, how do they get connected to you? How do they find out about the projects?
Generally not, other than as a client. Normally, I mean, we get clients in several different ways. We certainly have the ability. We've got a website, and we have some great material up there and project information. We certainly also, I go around to cities and municipal organizations and nonprofits and kind of talk about what the Institute does. We're going to be at a couple conferences next week. American Planning Association Multi-State Conference is over in Fort Worth, and then we'll be up at the Texas Downtown Association Conference in Denton at the end of next week. We have students who've been through the Institute who are working in cities and other organizations throughout the country. And they tend to remember their experiences there at the Institute fairly fondly. So we have them when they're in a position that they need something for their city or their nonprofit corporation, we have folks that come to us and say, would you help us look at this? And we also have, repeat business. We try to make sure that the folks that are receiving our services get the very best that we have to offer and want to come back when the next challenge presents itself.
Fantastic. Yeah, that repeat business is so important. And I'm sure that's something that our entrepreneurs listening are thinking about themselves. We want to build those relationships so we only have to find a customer that one time and then we keep them for a very long time if we give them good service. I'm going to ask us now, we have an opportunity to talk about some of the successes of our programs. So I'd like to circle back to Alicia first and thinking about the What's Your Big Idea entrepreneurship contest. Can you describe either a couple of projects that were particularly successful or that were implemented by the city, or where you just feel like you got great solutions? It may not be specific projects. You may not feel comfortable, sharing all of that information, but maybe a couple of topics that were of particular interest where you felt like you got really good solutions from the kids.
Yeah, so probably the most infamous one that I can talk about is, I believe it was back in 2012, we had a fourth grade student who wrote about their idea. They were, they came up to a problem with the pothole situation in Arlington. So if you have ever been around our mayor, Jeff Williams, he talks about this project quite a bit, and talked about it all through his mayorship. And so the student proposed an idea of putting a sensor on all GM vehicles, whoop, whoop, GM in the Arlington community, putting a sensor on all GM vehicles that would give the GPS location of a pothole and send it directly to the mayor's as a text message. So the idea developed just a little bit. Obviously, we know that we didn't create a program that was dropping things in our mayor's text message, but an entire project was created within the city to fill potholes. So it loosely came off of that idea and developed into a citywide program. So we're really excited that that came from a fourth grader. So there's lots of great ideas, and topics shift from year to year on what students write about. As you can imagine, a lot of our students wrote about pandemic related solutions last year. And with our high school students, we give them the actual problem to solve. So it's the reverse pitching style. So it's not, you see the creative piece from a twist. It's not necessarily just coming off the wall with their own ideas and their own innovations, but they're really solving a problem. So the last 2 years that we've had, and we partnered with the city, the students that entered the contest, one proposed a solution to cross-contamination of recycling bins, and they did a phenomenal job with their pitch. Last year, we had more of a social entrepreneurship style. We asked students to propose a solution to recycling the city's used electronic devices to better the community. So those are the types of projects that they've had an opportunity to work on. And I will say that the students who were our winners for year 1 and 2 came up with phenomenal pitches. And last summer, this past August, we held a recognition ceremony in person for both years. And so I know, Kim, you were able to be with us for that too. And it was just really exciting to get them together in the room with our mayor and our city staff, and our AISD officials. And it just was really great to get them in a group to where they're leading the discussions and they're leading the conversations on their ideas and their entrepreneurial thoughts, and really kind of persuading what's going on in the community and having those community leaders listening to them. So I would definitely say that that's a huge success, not only for us in showing what our program can do, but it's really giving those students an opportunity to build their network, their professional networks. I do want to take a minute. So we've talked about like the student success, but I do want to take a moment to talk about like our internal successes of, this program has come a long way. And so every time that we make, changes or we implement new things, it's for the experiential learning that you guys had talked about, was to bring in the students and give them different opportunities to experience real life and real world challenges. So that to me is a success anytime that we can grow the program. I know this year, I'm happy to say that we have translated our 3rd through 8th grade program into Spanish. So we're actually offering it in Spanish this year, which is huge. So that is going to help us promote it into our world language academies that AISD has, and giving those students an opportunity to participate that normally may not have an opportunity to participate. And give them a different spin for one of their language classes. They get to learn how to be an entrepreneur in a language class. We also implemented the opportunity to do commercials, like little 30-second commercial pitches in the 3rd through 8th grade classes. So we're really excited to expand that and give them just more opportunity to show who they are and tap into their passions. We're very big on that. So I would say that those are successes too. And Alan, you also talked about partnerships. Like, we can't do what we do without partnerships. And so every new implementation is a partnership opportunity. We partnered with UTA to create a summer camp for our top winner students. And so that summer camp is, we take all 12 of our first place winners and we send them to a 1-week summer camp to expand on their idea, to really build out their business plan and find their brand. And we give them tools and tips along the way. Every day is a new topic. And at the end of that camp, they're actually live pitching in front of a group of community leaders. And those are 3rd through 8th grade students, y'all. So that's huge for a 3rd through 8th grader to live pitch their business idea. And so we're really excited. COVID, we took a hit during COVID with not being able to conduct our camp, but we're coming back bigger and stronger. And we'll be conducting 3 classes all combined into 1 this year. So we're really excited to have, I think 34 students going to camp this summer, which is huge. So, and that would not be possible without our partnership with UTA. And I mentioned our partnership with the city in providing the challenges for the high school. So those partnerships are extremely important, and that leads us to our success stories too.
Thanks, Alicia, and thanks for mentioning how important partnerships are. I think that's something that probably Alan's going to hit on as well, and certainly something that the Center for Entrepreneurship and Economic Innovation is trying to encourage even more of. We have a collaborators committee that's external stakeholders at the center, where we really are trying to drive even more of those partnerships and help people get better connected within our North Texas ecosystem. And it is truly inspirational to see how much of an investment all of the people involved in What's Your Big Idea, the What's Your Big Idea Entrepreneurship Contest, really make in this program as volunteers, as teachers, as educators that all get so involved in this. And we're going to circle back around to that in just a couple of minutes as well. But thanks for sharing all of that. That's fantastic. So, Alan, perhaps you could tell us about a couple of projects that you think have been really impactful from the Institute's perspective, whether or not they had, big results, or whether it was just something that really helped you realize how the Institute could be instrumental in our community.
I want to focus on a couple things. I mentioned one of the things that we do are feasibility studies to look at either an idea from a nonprofit or an idea from a city to see if, in fact, it's workable. And we look at a business plan that they may have and do the analysis of the market, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a couple of those I want to touch on that really, the results weren't exactly maybe what the client was looking for at the beginning, but the results ended up really helping them move forward with a better idea. We worked with a neighborhood organization in Kaufman, Texas, who was looking to redevelop a piece of land within the neighborhood as a senior living center and wanted to have a feasibility study done. So we looked at that. We looked at the market around the city and in the county, and looked at competition, et cetera, looked at best business practices. And they had a business plan, and they had determined they'd had some architectural studies done. And we looked at what they were proposing and saw that the market simply wouldn't support that large, that many units. So we recommended that they reduce the size of their property that they were planning, that it was feasible just at a smaller size. And that study really enabled them to get close to $500,000 in funding from their bank and to move forward with that project. Sometimes you may have a really, really solid idea, but you need to make sure you scale it right, so that you can, don't bite off more than you can chew or more than the market can bear. Another project along those lines that we undertook was to work with the city of Brazoria, which is sort of south of Houston toward the Texas coast. And they were looking to develop a community water park, not just for their own citizens, but also to attract visitors from other communities. And in fact, the community-owned water park side of the business is the fastest growing side of the water park business. No one just puts in a regular pool anymore. So we looked at, again, they had a piece of property, they had ideas about what they wanted to do with it. And we looked at all the different aspects of that, other sort of activities that would go along and complement the core water park idea, and basically determined that while their idea could potentially generate enough fees, user fees, to support annual operating costs, it couldn't service their debt as well to build it. So we made a suggestion of looking at a public-private partnership where they could have a company that could come in and develop that for them, and the city could make whatever arrangement that they needed to make, since they already had the land, to receive a portion of the proceeds of the earnings every year. So maybe a little bit of a win-win. Again, not exactly what they were looking for to begin with, but and that's been in our library, and that's been downloaded something like 3,000 times, that feasibility study, through our Architecture and Fine Arts library. One other thing I wanted to mention, because again, talking about partnerships and sort of talking about coming out of COVID, I think everybody took a little bit of a hit from COVID. Everything just sort of slowed down, and we're coming out of that pretty strong with an initiative that we've received, I don't know, over $100,000 in grant money through two different agencies. And that is basically, we are working with schools within one private school and two within the Dallas Independent School District to teach GIS, Geographic Information Systems, to students at those schools as part of their architecture, planning, urban design sort of curriculum that they have. And we do that a little bit differently than a lot of other organizations might, because we are also currently in a long-term study of conditions of the Trinity River, specifically whether or not the Trinity River is the water quality sufficient to support paddling and other recreational activities, which 75% or more of the time it is along most of the river. Not after a big rain, so probably tomorrow is not a good day to go out there. But students get to use real world data on areas that they will go out and visit during the part of the course. So there are field trips. Students are actually out on the water in a kayak. They're able to do work with drones and do measurements, et cetera, et cetera. And the critical part of that is that, I mean, we have a great partnership with City Lab High School in Dallas. We're working with Molina High School, and we're working with Bishop Dunn Preparatory School, Catholic High School, in Oak Cliff. And those all reach underserved communities or under-resourced communities. And we hope to continue working with this process of using real-world relevant data to reach out to students that they can take and then do design projects with, and try to look at implementations and doing things that might improve the access to the resource, or something like that. And ultimately, GIS is a marketable skill in and of itself. If you are able to work well with geographic information systems, almost every industry in the world uses that sort of spatial analysis and mapping tool now, because the data is just so much more relevant and digestible in so many aspects when it's put in a spatial way. You can see the maps and see where your customers are, or see where the areas of higher disposable income, or where your competition is, or where people don't have access, or good transportation or healthcare, or access to whatever service you're providing. And there's we're looking to, we hope over time, expand that into certificate and other programs to bring students from high school into undergraduate, and then provide them with, maybe they don't have to get the full degree, but they can then do something and then have something that's marketable for them. Similarly, we're looking at other programs in development review, et cetera, that we hope will provide. The idea is to provide individuals with marketable skills, and skills that could translate into a number of different potential career areas.
Thank you for that. And that's a terrific point to make that I hadn't thought of before this panel, which is for our entrepreneurs that are watching, our small business owners that are watching. Universities like the University of Texas at Arlington, the Institute for Urban Studies, can be a great source of employees for your new company, skilled employees who bring unique talents to your company that you need. As Alan said, some of this technology is becoming so pervasive that we can't even try to tackle some of these community-driven challenges without having that expertise on our team. And students can be a great way to get access to that expertise. And you can do that by connecting with your university that has an institute like the one that we have here at UTA. So if you're in our area, definitely start to learn more about the Institute for Urban Studies. And, to tie that back to you, Alicia, I would say too that, our entrepreneurs that are in this audience need to be aware that the younger generation is coming, right? We were talking about that right before we got started, that these are entrepreneurs who are already thinking about, how do I solve these problems? Fourth graders that have solutions that get implemented by the city. These are people who are figuring this out at a very early stage, and they are right behind the entrepreneurs that are probably watching these sessions during Global Entrepreneurship Week this year. So get moving, start building those connections, and start proposing your solutions.
Alicia, I want to talk to you, but maybe mind some of your connections at AISD about this program too.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
We'd love to connect with them.
See,
Excellent.
another partnership opportunity.
Right Excellent.
Absolutely.
Excellent. That's why we need to attend, these sorts of events, and we need to get to know each other, because you two hadn't met before today, and so I'm really glad that this panel has given you a way to connect, and we'll get you connected afterwards too, so that you can talk more about potential collaborations.
Yeah, and Kim, I want to jump in real quick and just say that, what we're doing in the K through 12 space is really just setting up a pipeline for, UTA to come in and help expand on those entrepreneurial ideas and help shape them and guide them with more tools in their toolbox. So, this is just a stepping stone for the student. And I think that speaks to Arlington's uniqueness in how we look at our entire entrepreneurship ecosystem of incorporating the K through 12 space and really getting them set up to absorb everything that UTA has to offer moving forward.
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons we're really excited to partner with the Greater Arlington Chamber and the Arlington Independent School District on this program, because we do recognize that many of those students are going to stay in our area and become mavericks in the long run. And so we're excited that they're getting a taste of it before they even get to the university. It's fantastic preparation. So if you don't mind, I'd like to segue us into talking a little bit about funding and resources. after this, we'll talk about what the future holds for all of us. But thinking about the entrepreneurial audience and these types of projects, I'd like to ask each of you to give us a little bit of insight on where funding comes from. How do you get the resources to really drive these projects forward? um, and thinking about how small businesses and entrepreneurs kind of fit into that picture and how they can become aware of these sources of funding and ideas for these projects. So, Alan, maybe you could start us off on this one. Do you, at the Institute, are you primarily responding to client requests? Do you also look at solicitations or requests from proposals? How do you get involved in these types of projects?
A number of different ways. Generally, at the city level, we don't respond to requests for proposals because that we also don't. We produce a lot of practitioners in planning, design, and architecture, and we don't want to compete with our alumni. So we generally don't respond to those. We will. Certainly, we do seek out grants at all levels and seek to partner with other nonprofit organizations, other universities, private companies, whatever set of expertise is needed to really address the terms of the grant. We also we do have some support from previous alumni. So that is available, and we treasure that. We have folks who come to us, as we said before. Our services are not necessarily free, and by not necessarily free, I mean not free. However, what we charge for are essentially is to support students. The money will go straight to graduate research assistants, salaries or stipends, and support, tuition support, so that we give students those opportunities, and it helps students fund their education by working at the Institute. It really is students, particularly, we have a lot of international students who work with us as well, and they have limited opportunities because of their international status. They have to work essentially on campus or for the university. So we do provide opportunities for those students to be able to continue their education. So it's a matter of someone, we will either, in a discussion with someone, or organization, the city, identify an issue that we can help with or that they would like our help with. And we sit down with them and come up. It's almost like developing a little business plan. This is how we're going to approach this. This is the kind of time we think it'll take, and these are the resources we believe it will take, and it ends up being essentially a fee-for-service contract. Again, it's going to be at a reduced rate. It's not we're a state agency, so we're not in this to make a profit. We can't make a profit. That's not the goal. The goal is to provide service at the least expensive way we can, and still provide those opportunities for our students.
Thanks for pointing out that those services that you do provide to your clients are not free. But it is a not-for-profit organization, and I think one of the things that's going to be interesting to our entrepreneurial audience is, again, you have this client portfolio that you've been working with. You're very well connected in our community. So for our entrepreneurs and small business owners in the area, really recognizing that institutes like the Institute for Urban Studies, colleges like Kappa, universities like UTA have this wealth of faculty and researchers and students that are working on these types of projects. This is a terrific network for you to become aware of and to keep an eye on the types of projects that they're working on. So Alicia, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about What's Your Big Idea Entrepreneurship Contest. How has that program been supported by people throughout the community?
Yeah. So first of all, I definitely want to say that we could not do the What's Your Big Idea contest without AISD. So this is strictly for our Arlington ISD students. And our partnership with them is extremely vital to pulling this off. So they're the teachers and the principals are the ones who get this going, and it really, starts from the top down and getting implemented into the classroom. And so we have a very large group of teachers who participate year after year and really kind of support the program and getting their students to participate. So without that, this contest would not be what it is. But when we look at funding sources, that's very real to us. It's not just about the contest. There's two parts to it. It's a contest, and then we throw a very huge recognition ceremony for all of our student finalists. That's in the neighborhood of 1,000 to 1,200 students. And we hold it at College Park Center at UTA, and there's usually about 4,500 people who attend that. It's a Saturday in April. It's very impressive. So when we look at sponsorships, and the way that the chamber does sponsorships for our events, the chamber is known for business to business, right? The chamber grows businesses, and we work with businesses, and we help business network with one another. This event is very different than anything else that the chamber does. This is the only event that is a B2C event. So this is an opportunity for a business to directly connect with the community itself. These are the parents, the teachers that are in your community. So this is a fantastic opportunity for people to get their business out there. So when we look at sponsorships, it's everything from, we have general level sponsorship opportunities up to very large sponsorship opportunities. And when we look at this event, we're really trying to find a business or an organization that is connected with entrepreneurship, and this is their passion, and this is what they want to invest their time and their money into. So we try and create as much custom opportunity as we can. In terms of like the What's Your Big Idea, the Big Idea Lab, which is our camp. We try to identify one camp sponsor that can provide an entire experience for the students. We purchased we purchased iPads for our first place recipients as well. And so to digitize the whole camp experience. So that's part of that process. So there are a number of items that go into the recognition side of things that, do require funding. And overall, this is a great opportunity for you to connect directly with the youth in your community. And so there's a number of sponsorship opportunities. I wish I had a list to share, but it's really more of a custom opportunity to figure out what is right for you and your organization.
Thanks, Alicia. And I appreciate that. Alan, you wanted to jump in with something.
I did. I just, if in fact you are, someone who's at if your resources are severely strained, let's say, a conversation or a couple conversations doesn't cost anything. And we at the Institute are always open to discuss your ideas with you and see if we are not able to help you, we might be able to find someone else who can. So don't hesitate. And I'm sure Alicia's exactly the same way. So don't let fear of, oh my gosh, how much is this going to cost, get in the way of at least an initial conversation to see, because there might be help out there somewhere. And our role is, again, we're a state agency, we're a service organization, and our basic role is to be of service.
Thanks, Ellen. And I'm sure that this audience is interested in that. I think the idea of feasibility studies that you were describing earlier is probably something that many of the entrepreneurs in the audience are starting to think about themselves. I've got an idea for a solution to this community-driven challenge. Not sure if it has legs, but I need to talk to somebody about whether or not this makes sense, and who do I need to get connected to. And again, recognizing the resources that are available through something like the Institute for Urban Studies to have those conversations, to meet someone who's been there and done that, worked on those kinds of challenges, is absolutely priceless. But the fact that it's available, at least at the early stages, to have a chat, get some information, get access to resources, can be offered to them free of charge. at least for that first conversation is terrific. And Alicia, I think for the entrepreneurs at the other end of the spectrum who have founded a business, have a little bit of wherewithal available to them, and they're thinking about making an investment in their community. Thank you for mentioning the sponsorship angle, because I think that is a really good way for some of our entrepreneurs and founders that may be watching this program to start to make connections within their community and demonstrate that they really are interested in being involved in this ecosystem. They have something to offer. They want to help encourage entrepreneurship in our students. Um, Contests like this, whether it's within Arlington or whether it's elsewhere in the country or even within the world, because this is GEW, Global Entrepreneurship Week, take a look around your communities and see if there are opportunities like this. Because if you've got a little bit of funding that you can now invest back into your community, a contest like this might be a fantastic way to do it. So I'm
Absolutely,
gonna
Kim.
go
Oh,
ahead,
I got
Alicia.
one more thing for you, and
Please.
I didn't mention. So we talk about the financial piece to sponsorship, but really, as we look at the UTA entrepreneurship community, how do they get involved? They maybe not necessarily have, reached that opportunity to give financially. So there's a huge volunteer aspect to this contest as well. So if you find that you want to participate in this and money is just tight and you're unable to sponsor, of course, if you're able to sponsor, we want your sponsorship dollars. We want to give you that exposure. But there's tremendous volunteer opportunities, and mentoring the next generation of entrepreneurs is very huge to us. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to come in and be a judge for the contest. There's an opportunity for you to come in and help us run the award ceremony. As you can imagine, 4,500 people is a lot to corral in one space. So there's opportunities for you to volunteer at that point. There's opportunities for us to bring in guest speakers during our camp experience. And then throughout the process, the contest is open for students between, they're rolling out this week. And so the contest, with it being open until mid-January, there's opportunities to get in front of students to kind of help them with these ideas. So it's really kind of tapping an organization or a business's time, talent, and treasure. So whichever way that you're able to participate, we accept that. So it's not just a financial aspect.
Thanks, Alicia. And that's important for our entrepreneurs to know too, that there are other ways that they can get involved, things that are equally valuable to cash, being able to, to offer a sponsorship in that way, but getting involved as a judge. I know I can't even remember how many applications I looked at, but it was several hundred applications that I looked at as a judge. And so there are definitely needs for more and more judges to get involved, people who really find that this is something they want to get passionate about. So thanks for pointing that out, Alicia. I'm going to mention really quickly a couple of programs at the federal level that are really getting at this reverse pitch sort of idea. And what I'm going to do in the interest of time, because I want to make sure we spend as much time with our panelists as we can, I'm going to have on our website a couple of resources available if you're interested in doing the types of searches that I'm going to mention to find out more about potential collaborators, customers, contacts that you can find from these federal resources. Take a look at the Center for Entrepreneurship and Economic Innovation's website, because I'll have some flowcharts and walkthroughs on how to do these searches. But I'll mention these two programs. One is the federal level Small Business Innovation Research Program. That's something that if you're an entrepreneur, you need to get familiar with, even if you're not developing a technology-based company, although many companies now incorporate technology in a significant sort of way. So the SBIR program is something that the federal government runs. Many agencies within the federal government are participating in the SBIR program. And there are a lot of topics that are relevant to entrepreneurs who are looking to solve community-driven problems. So I'm going to take you through an example with the SBIR program and how you can find some of this information relevant to our conversation. If you were starting a company that was interested in food security or solving the problem of food deserts, for example, all of us saw in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex where we live, here in Arlington, we saw the long lines for food banks and other resources during the pandemic. Families were trying to get access to all of this food to feed their families. And then within our Metroplex, we certainly have areas where there's an incredibly dense population of people, but very few grocery stores that have a full selection of produce and other healthy food for their families. That's a food desert. So if you've got a company and you're trying to solve this problem, where might you go within the federal government to find funding for that idea? If you go to the SBIR.gov website, and you look through I'd suggest that you start by doing a search for active funding by doing a topic search. You can look along the left-hand side of the page and it will tell you all of the agencies that are participating. For these topics, you might think the U.S. Department of Agriculture is a likely place where you would find a home for this type of project. You can click the box next to the Department of Agriculture and see what topics they offer. You'll see there are 10 topics that are offered by the USDA that are all related to food production in some format. There are 3 in particular, I think, that could be a match for these topics, so you can explore those. The website gives you the deadlines, it gives you instructions, it gives you contact information for the program managers. So as Alan said, you've got someone specific you can reach out to ask questions, get more information, find out if your idea really has legs, and if it's of interest to that agency. When you do look at the USDA, don't be disappointed because the deadline for the USDA solicitation just ended the week before Global Entrepreneurship Week, but don't be disappointed. Those topics recur annually. They'll offer them again next year. And in the meantime, between this year and next year when it opens again, you'll have an opportunity to, it's such a treasure trove of information, that website, on the companies who've won, the types of projects that the federal government has been interested in, the contact people at those companies who've won. So you can reach out to them as potential collaborators, or you can start to scope out their companies as potential competitors if that's the direction that you're going. So again, I'll have some instructions on the website for how to actually do that search, but become very aware of the SBIR program. And the other one that I'm going to mention very quickly gets to Alan's idea of these being civic innovations. So the National Science Foundation started a couple of years ago something they call the Civic Innovation Challenge. This is a program that's designed to connect universities to their communities to solve these types of community-driven problems. It really is a reverse pitch in the way that Alicia was describing for What's Your Big Idea entrepreneurship contest. It's a reverse pitch at the national level, where NSF has gone out to our communities and said, if we gave you $1 million and 18 months, what problem would you tackle first in your community? And the communities literally answer that question for these agencies. The agencies get together, they do an ideas festival where all of these ideas are submitted, and then the agencies sort through all of those ideas and decide the tracks for the next solicitation. So while this program, the Civic Innovation Challenge, might not be a direct source of funding for your company as a small business, it is a terrific source of ideas for the types of challenges that communities feel are their top priority. So places that are going to need the solutions that you're developing are going to be winners in this competition. You can look through, they had 2 tracks in the most recent solicitation, one on communities and mobility, so trying to connect those dots between affordable housing that's often outside a metroplex like ours in DFW and good jobs that are often within the metroplex. So how do we get people from home to work and back again in a reasonable way? That's something that NSF, so at the federal level, said we want to solve that problem. How do we solve that problem? You can look at the communities that won awards in that challenge and see if they're interested in a solution that you offer if your company is developing a solution in that area. The other was resilience to natural disasters. Again, a strength here at UTA. Both of these are actually strengths of our researchers here at UTA, and where a lot of our students get involved in these types of projects. So take a look at those communities that have won those awards and see if there are communities where you can start to get connected. Go to these conferences that Alan mentioned, participate in these contests that Alicia has described, start to really get connected and involved and make your solution more visible to the people who have these challenges. So I just wanted to throw that in there for you guys because I think that could be a great resource for our entrepreneurs that are watching this. So as we wrap up our conversation today, I want to, again, thank you both because this has been fascinating, but I'd like you to take a moment very quickly to talk about the future. Alicia, if you can tell us a little bit about what the future holds for the What's Your Big Idea competition, especially the high school competition. And then Alan, if there are a couple of projects on the horizon or other ways that you're becoming more involved in the community, maybe you could hit on those, both of you, really quickly.
Absolutely. So I think that with the What's Your Big Idea contest, expansion is inevitable for our high school contest. We're just in very early, it's very early concept of its third year. So the sky's the limit. I know that AISD has created an entrepreneurship practicum course so that there is students who will be participating, and the way that it's being implemented at the high school level is very different than the last 2 years. So we're very excited to see about an uptick in our numbers with high school participants. I also think that we will see an increase in numbers with our elementary and junior high participation as well. So I already mentioned a little bit on the expansion of expanding into the Spanish realm, and then also with the video advertisement. So I think as we learn what our students are interested in putting out as far as their content goes, is, how we'll expand and we'll adapt the program to grow it.
Thank you. And Alan, what about you? What does the future hold for the Institute?
Well, I think it's probably like everybody else. We're really looking around and doing a little bit of reassessment post COVID, because the set of challenges has changed somewhat, or the emphasis in certain areas has changed, and we are doing some things and looking at working with some communities to do some studies of um, workforce housing availability, commuting patterns, understanding or getting a better idea of, for smaller businesses or businesses who are looking for people, um, will those employees have an affordable place to live, so that they don't have excessive commuting times, and it creates a challenge right there to long-term employment or growth, if that's the issue. We are also looking at some of the things that, like we talked about earlier, expanding our training programs in GIS and other areas to try to develop direct assistance for developing workforce. And there are opportunities out there through the American Recovery Plan Act that we, along with, I think, everybody else on campus, are looking at with regards to that. We're also continuing to develop what I talked about, that I can't say that, real world information on the Trinity River. Our end goal, and this is an area that we are always looking for partnerships on, and also we're looking for additional funding, is to develop kind of a real-time Trinity River report card. If the river, I don't know, over 200 miles of the river was just recently named a national paddling trail by the National Park Service. And what we would like to get to is a point where we can provide information for folks who want to go out for a day on the river in their kayak or canoe, or go out with their family on the water to see, is it safe? What are the water conditions looking like? And generally, what's the environment there? And is it going to be conducive to safe access and enjoyment? So there's other stuff too, but it's
No, that's great. And I think, one of the things that I want to thank you both for today is, I think you gave our entrepreneurs that are watching so many different angles to be thinking about as they're starting their businesses, as they're coming up with these solutions. Alan, our entrepreneurs, even if they're starting a paddling business on the Trinity River, right? They need to be aware that there's a group that's actually starting to research whether or not that's a feasible idea, and how are we going to manage that report card for our river system. And Alicia, you gave our entrepreneurs so many different pathways into getting connected to these types of programs that are running within our cities that they may not even be aware of. So thank you both so much for this great discussion today. I learned a lot. I was scribbling down notes while we were talking. And I want to thank our audience for their attention today. We know that there are a lot of interesting sessions that are going on during Global Entrepreneurship Week, and we're so glad that you could spend a little bit of time with us today. And I will say at the end here, if you'd like to learn more about entrepreneurship and economic innovation at UTA or within our North Texas ecosystem, please visit our website at the Center for Entrepreneurship and Economic Innovation. It's a very simple website. It's go.uta.edu/CEEI. And I'd like to thank everyone again for sharing some time with me today. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.